And you know what else we need in this world? Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, we do. We do. Because we didn't really have him help us win the Vietnam War. But he did in an alternate universe.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to talk about that alternate universe. We're going to talk about the Watchmen universe. Because HBO put out... we've finished binging... we've binged or we're real-time watching Watchmen. That sounds weird. Real-time watching Watchmen. And now that it's over, it's over. Because actually, I think we just heard they're not doing a season 2, like officially.
They're not?
No. And I'm actually really excited about that.
That's cool.
Because especially,
sad, but cool.
It is sad because it was so great. This show is fantastic, and we'll get into all of that in a second. But I think not having a season 2 is something personally that I have been wanting to see with a lot of other shows. Like, I thought Stranger Things should have stopped after the first season.
100%.
And I understand the cash grab behind it. If you have an IP that makes money, keep trying to make that money. But storytelling wise, sometimes things need to just end. And I think them doing that with Watchmen currently, I mean, maybe in the future we'll hear something new. And my only hope is if they do another one, it's kind of an anthology, like not direct sequel to this, but like True Detective type, you know.
For sure. I mean, there's so many characters in that universe. They can do other spin-offs, and it's kind of cool. This one was about, Hooded Justice.
Oh man, that episode was one of the best episodes of television I've ever seen. To me, that's up there with Battle of the Bastards from Game of Thrones, as like just cinematically and storytelling wise. Like,
I'm so happy that you just said that, because that's literally my favorite episode. The cinematography, so I remember during it, I'm just like blown away. Mm-hmm. Like, this is so good. And what were your thoughts on, maybe like the first 4 episodes? Because especially for people that didn't watch Watchmen the movie, by the way, I recommend anybody to watch that movie.
I also recommend it. I think I might prefer the director's cut of it. I don't know if you've seen, because there's a couple of different versions of it.
Yeah,
the theatrical cut is a little bit less. They pulled some stuff that was in the comic out for the movie. Like the whole squid thing is not in the movie.
Right. Is it in the director's cut?
Is it? I can't remember actually if it is in the director's cut. But what they do put in is there's a comic within the comic about a pirate. Like it's a whole pirate storyline, and they put that in the director's cut too, and it kind of parallels some of the story as it goes along, which is really cool. So yeah, director's cut. I recommend watching the movie as well. My first thoughts when I first saw it, because I was watching it in real time too. I think I saw it maybe I started maybe episode 3 in. They had put up the first 3 episodes, and I'll be completely honest, I thought it was a little bit thin. I thought it was like, oh, this is great, this looks good and everything, and I kind of thought I saw a lot of things coming. I was pretty wrong. I'll admit I was pretty wrong. And my friend Brandon and I were talking about this the other day. He was like, yeah, weren't you saying that the first couple episodes were like, yeah, it seems kind of cheesy and kind of thin, but yeah, and I did say that. I am eating my words.
I'm with you. My love for the movie is what kept me in the first 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. And not that I wasn't really, enjoying it, because I'm the type that if it's just I can't do it, I'm out. I'm turning it off. But I just kept hanging in there, and it was just so exciting to, the second half of the season just execute.
Man.
And thank you.
It's some of the greatest,
Dave Gibbons and
all the directors, producers. Damon Lindelof was the showrunner on that one, and he's done a bunch of stuff. He's written some comics, I think, but he did Lost, and he's worked with J.J. Abrams on some other stuff.
Oh, okay.
But honestly, I have a lot of friends that are. He's worked on a lot of popular stuff, but some friends that are pretty critical on him as a storyteller. You know, sometimes his stuff doesn't end well, or maybe
Lost.
it's yep. I was gonna maybe not name something, but thanks, Dusty.
Yeah.
Now I'll never get a job in Hollywood because
That was solely on me.
because we blamed the smoke monster.
Just did not sponsor what I said.
No, yeah, some people have been kind of maybe not as excited about some of his work because maybe he hasn't stuck the landing in some of his other work. But this one, boy, and him saying that he doesn't have a story for season 2, that's fine. That's fine by me. If you end up writing one that's great, that's even better for us as fans because we'll get more content. But the story that we just got, I don't necessarily need to see like a crazy expansion on certain characters. I love Tim Blake Nelson though, and I want to see more Looking Glass because that guy's just awesome. Like, and I think actually that episode might have been the turning point for me because that's like episode 4 or 5 is his like backstory, and I still had that kind of the opinion of like, oh yeah, this is going in a direction I think I see where it's going, and kind of thought it was a little predictable. Then they end the episode before with Angela taking the pills.
Yes.
And then there's just the Looking Glass episode, so you have to wait a full episode to see what she's experienced after that. And so I was kind of hooked, like, okay, I want to see what that's all about. And then the Looking Glass episode came up, and I'm like, oh, this is good too. You know, he's got his whole backstory and how it ties into, you know, where he ends up, you know, becoming this kind of vigilante police officer. I don't really know what to call them. Are they all vigilantes, or are they just law enforcement? I don't know.
Like the whole police department?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's an interesting concept, and I think, I mean, we can get into larger things later, but I think that's where the show picked up for me, is maybe around episode 4 or 5, and then after that, you get the Hood of Justice episode, and then you get the rest of the story being told, and
absolutely. Oh, so good. Yeah, and especially picking a character for me like Hood of Justice, because I really didn't. I mean, he's not really in the movie much.
Mm-mm. He's barely in the. I mean, as far as I remember, it's been a while since either one of us read the comic too. I don't think he's in the comic much either. He's just there as kind of this figure that is, you know, original Justice League style member,
right,
that you just kind of reference and you see every once in a while. But yeah, he's not in either one of the material much as far as I remember.
Right. To me, I liked him just a little that I knew about him because of the scene in the movie where he, you know, saves Jupiter.
Yeah.
With the, you know, the whole sad scene with the Joker trying to comedian. Yeah. My bad. The comedian, you know, that whole scene with them in the billiard room. So, he protects her. Yeah. And that was a great scene for him, for Hood of Justice, for coming in and saving the day.
I need to rewatch the movie again myself. It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
So good.
Yeah. I think that director's cut is one of Zack Snyder's crowning achievements as a director too. I mean, Justice League was not very good. He's done some other stuff. 300 was great. And out of the DC movie universe, the newer one, I think Man of Steel is the best Superman movie.
I really liked Man of Steel.
I liked it a lot. I've never really been a Superman supporter. I don't know. He's just kind of he was always a little too strong for me. But I think Zack's... Damn
superheroes need to be weak.
Drum sound effect in there. Yeah, no, but I did think Zack Snyder did a more human take on Superman, more realistic version, you know, where he feels pain and has to make decisions that aren't what he wants, but, you know, those are the human elements that we all struggle with. And that's kind of Superman's theme, as an alien being more human than most humans,
right?
You know,
right?
But that aside, I think Watchmen is probably his greatest, and that's divisive amongst comic book fans as well too.
For sure.
But
what kind of maybe was a turnoff for you? Was it part of the Adrian story?
no, I to be quite honest, I really thought I saw the ending coming, but I didn't. It felt like they were telling a story of the Watchmen characters in the Watchmen world just to tell the Watchmen story. But when you really see the world that they built, this isn't a sequel to Watchmen so much as it is just like what happens in that universe. Well, I mean, this is semantics of what a sequel really is, but like this isn't a sequel to specific characters from the Watchmen series. Mm-hmm. This is like the aftermath of all the stuff that happens in that, like how society and the rest of the world moves on. And yeah, there's characters from the Watchmen universe, but it felt like that to me. It felt like they were kind of just playing in someone else's universe for a while, but after you see the whole series, it was totally its own thing, and it told a really, really good story in the long run.
It did, and I kind of feel like the wild card there, Hong Chow. Is that how you pronounce her last name? Chow? She played Lady True.
Lady True.
Yeah.
I don't know the actress's name, so you probably got that one up on me. But no, Lady True, she was great.
Oh my gosh! And it's like, okay, she's a good, on the good side, and then oh no,
yeah.
But it was great. It's a total mystery, and who is this gal? And then, then the episode where it starts off where she was conceived, it was,
oh man,
awesome. It was so brilliant. Mm-hmm. That was brilliant in my opinion.
I love how she introduced herself as whatever, like test number 4273 or whatever. That was great. Yeah, they did such brilliant things with the storytelling. That was something I never saw coming too. Is they've got this. I maybe kind of assumed maybe she could take on that role because she did feel like Ozymandias' character a little bit, the rich kind of billionaire type that turns out to be the one doing all the things.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
whole mastermind behind everything. Yeah.
And that might have been maybe one of the things I was a little on the nose with the series, but the way they use her, I didn't think it was like, oh, I've seen this before. It was like, I want to see what this crazy lady's doing.
Yeah, and then especially when you find out, spoiler alert, she's Adrian's daughter.
Yeah.
And, he's obviously the most, the smartest man in the world. So here's, his daughter.
Number 2.
On a mission.
Yeah.
And, okay, Regina King.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go there.
Okay. Nothing against Regina King. I'm sure she's an amazing lady. I just has never been a fan of her acting. Mm-hmm. And man, she stole my heart in this one. She really did.
Yeah.
Kudos, Regina King, if you're listening.
She legitimately deserves like a Best Actress award for this role.
Yeah. And Regina, if you're listening, yes, I'll have your babies.
And I'll be honest, I wasn't fully aware of her as an actress. I'm sure I had seen her in some other stuff, but as I went back to look her up, I was like, oh, she's in Friday.
So, well,
because it's also been like 20 years since I've seen Friday.
Boys in the Hood,
right?
Or was she in 227, that old show?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I think she was in that. So that was either the first time I seen her, mm-hmm. and then I think that on the big screen, the first time I saw her was in Boys in the Hood, mm-hmm. Which she did. Her character was great in that. It just was weird. Like, what was the? No, I'm not gonna get sidetracked here, but you know what? I'm proud of her. She just did such a great job, and also too, just on the episodes. And I think they did a good job with, the flashing back to when she was a little girl.
Yeah.
Maybe that had something to do with it, warming your heart. Like, man, there's this girl, she's been orphaned, and, she sticks to her goal. She becomes a cop, and then, and They did it. The writers did such an amazing job hooking you into these characters and just emotionally, you're just rooting for them.
Yeah, that whole it's later in the I think it's maybe episode 6 or 7 or something like that. It's the one where the title of it is A God Walks Into a Bar, like because her name is Angela Abar, and that's the whole one where Dr. Manhattan sits down at the table with her and tells her everything and is trying to get her to go on a date with him. That episode is so great.
Yeah,
because you go back into her childhood and seeing why she's orphaned and how she ended up in the situation that she did, living in Vietnam. And that's what I guess kind of one of the things I was trying to say is what I really like about this show is how they took that alternate history from the comics and progressed it. So like, yeah, Dr. Manhattan wins Vietnam War in the comics and the movies, but what we see in the show is that is like the 51st state now, and like we have like it's not uncommon to hear a lot of Americans born in Vietnam and grow up and live there, and that was
so good.
That was amazing to me. I was like, I love seeing this kind of stuff. That's the expansion I want to see. I think this is what I was kind of trying to get across when we were talking about the Rise of Skywalker, about where maybe Star Wars could go to. That's kind of what I want to see, is maybe not like Rey when she's 50, 60 years old, but what the repercussions of everything from the end of this meant 40 years down the line, 60 years, 100 years down the line,
for sure.
And move on in that kind of environment. Because that's what I think Watchmen did really well here, is they didn't bash you over the head with like, hey, remember the comic?
Yeah, it was you hit it, you nailed it. They didn't shove it down your throat, and it was just enough for you to relay back to the movie, but it's a whole new world.
Yeah,
it's the future. This is what happened. Was it 40 years later? Yeah,
it's like somewhere like, I think it's mostly present day, but just in that alternate universe. So yeah, about 40 years down the line. There's another piece of symbolism in the show that I didn't catch until I rewatched the show. My friend Brandon was in town and he hadn't seen it, so we binged it, and there's some symbolism that I didn't catch at first, but the whole egg thing, that Dr. Manhattan and Angela have that conversation about, like, oh, you could, I forget what the conversation is specifically.
Transfer his powers.
Yeah, transfer the power into an egg,
like
and then he
organic
drops it into the beer and drinks it and whatnot. And then like he's cooking later, and the eggs come floating out of the refrigerator, and she smashes them on the ground, and there's one egg left, and like all of these little things, and then at the end of the series, she eats that egg.
Yeah.
And then, and this is another thing that I fucking loved about this show. Because thinking about it, I was like, okay, if I was to make this, if I was directing this, what would I do? She's the pool, and she's putting her foot down, and I would cut it right here. And you know what they did? Right when I said that, they fucking cut it, and I jumped up and I cheered. I was like, yes, they fucking did it.
And then people around you are like, hey, just keep it down here.
Put your pants back.
Totally. And, there's people out there that don't like cliffhangers. But it was, it's a thin line of, movies or TV series is dragging out and Irishman. And just cut the fucking, just cut it. You did something so brilliant, cut it, end it, move on. And that's how I walked away from it. And was pumping my fist. And there's a character I want to talk about though.
Okay.
I think it's a little overlooked, maybe not, and you can chime in on it, but this motherfucker scared the shit out of me. And was he the senator?
Oh yeah.
Motherfucker. If that dude walked into my house one night, I'd be scared as shit. I mean,
the young Southern governor, dude.
James Walk, Senator James Walk, as the actor's Joe Keane, I believe.
Okay.
Fucking A, man, that guy nailed it, in my opinion.
Oh man, I was scared too. And that guy is believable, and that's why he's scary. Is because he's believable to today's world, even though this is like an alternate universe. You know, like we see people like him in our real life now, which is like, oh, shit.
Yeah. It was. Oh, he was so good. That was a great character. I mean, every time he just talked, I was glued to the screen.
The one time I was really weirded out by him was when at the end sequence of what they're trying to pull off, and he's taking his clothes off, and he's wearing the fucking Dr. Manhattan like weird Speedos. I'm like, come on, man. Any Speedos would have done.
But didn't skip a beat while he was stripping. It reminded me of the first time I met you, man.
We were at work, and I started stripping. We didn't look away from each other once.
Hashtag lies.
Hashtag Port Wainimi.
Oh man, yeah. I mean that whole. I mean, seriously, if I'm an actor, and my scene is to be a badass and strip down to a Manhattan Speedo.
Yeah.
I don't know how many takes that would take. But yeah.
I'd probably still be doing it just for fun. Like, hey, can we do that one more time, guys?
So good. So good. What characters stood out to you like that were maybe just on the side? But
I have one actually. As you were mentioning that you had a favorite character, I didn't know if you were going here or not, but there's a character that pops up like once, and they don't really like say anything about it again. And then there was, I guess, like HBO put out some extra material or something that was like alluded to who this person might be, but that was the lube man in all silver, and she's like chasing him down the street, and he pulls out the jars of lube, and he's like lubing himself up, and then slides into the sewers.
Oh yes,
that dude.
How the hell did I forget about that one?
That dude. I want to. Okay. That's the show I want. That's the sequel I want is Lube Man. Because that shit was so weird.
Reminded me of an episode of American Dad. I'm pretty sure Roger did that.
Does he?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Was it Ricky Spanish?
Ricky Spanish. I'm suing them, by the way, because that was created after me.
Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. Dusty's real name is not Dusty. He's been in witness protection because he is Ricky Spanish. Sorry, no, he's Ricky Spanish.
Should have won an Academy Award in my opinion.
They'll put you in the live action version. Fuck it, I'll cast you in the live action version. No, so Lube Man was weird. And then they put out some extra material saying that it might have been that the younger like agent that is with the older Silk Spectre. What's her name? Lori. Mm-hmm. In the beginning of the series, she's like running around with this younger agent, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's him." Basically, I was like, "Okay, I get behind that," but still, I want that show.
Can you imagine if you witnessed that?
Just a dude like lubing himself up while he's running and just sliding into things. Like,
And depending what I'm smoking that day, I might try it right after, but I'd do a head plant right into that. Yeah.
If it's sidewalk. Raw garden, if it's my raw garden, I got not happening. Like, keep running, homie. See you later. Raw garden, hit us up.
We love your shit.
There's actually one thing I want to talk about too that's not specific to an episode. Well, it's relevant to the whole story that this specific story is telling. But the Tulsa riots. So I'm gonna be ignorant here. I didn't know about the Tulsa riots until I watched this show. I was like, oh, that's crazy. Turns out that really happened.
Get out.
That's a real event that happened in American history. And
I mean, sadly not shocking, but
yeah,
I didn't know that.
And yeah, it's a terrible thing that happened, and it should be acknowledged more. It should be one of those things taught in schools, particular with the time period we live in. But I don't want to get too political, but I do think it's an important thing that people, as bad as I feel about not knowing that piece of American history beforehand, it's good that people are learning that kind of a thing from really well-made shows. And there's a lot of alternate history within this world, and so I think a lot of people assume like, oh yeah, this is something that didn't happen, or this is maybe fabricated for the show. No, it really happened. That is a true American event that was honestly swept under the rug in a lot of senses too. And if you read into some of the history, it's obvious why.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's obvious why.
Absolutely, but here we are, 2020, and you know what? It's like what we talked about last episode, Rise of Skywalker. You hope Disney learns from their fucking mistakes.
Yeah.
All right, peeps, can we start learning from ours?
Yeah.
And it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to address it.
Yeah.
Because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, we live in weird times right now where everything is pretty hypersensitive. It can be pretty hypersensitive, and conversations around things like this are sometimes hard for people to have, but they're important. And in the context of this show, even though there's alternate universe stuff, it was really tastefully done. Really tastefully done.
I agree.
And I think that it ties into how Hooded Justice as a character kind of progresses. Because let's get into that episode, the Hooded Justice one, because that one, there's a lot to unpack there. And, he lived through the Tulsa riots as a kid and experienced racism through his whole life. And was also, they don't fully explicit, but he has a relationship with another man in the show. That's too. Right. So he's got things that he's dealing with in a time period where just your color, like the color of your skin, is enough to get
you're
beat
a big
up
target.
and jump.
Sadly, you're a big target.
Yeah.
So to add any type of personal love, or whatever you want to call it, being bisexual, or if he was full on gay, so that's, now you got two targets on you, sadly. And it was so, I keep saying it was so well done, but it was so well done because it was so smooth, in my opinion. There wasn't all these little stories and history facts shoved down your throat. It was just the storytelling was done so well.
Yeah. Just real quick to bring this into another piece of media, I watched The Joker recently, and the story of the Joker is watching the mental change from one person to another, essentially. This one person's journey from being one way to completely changing his opinion and becoming this other person or thing. And Watchmen, that's kind of the same story with Hooded Justice. It's not that he's becoming this villain or whatever, but he's an angry man because he's been persecuted his whole life. His family was murdered because of injustice, and he's tired of it. And I think I have some opinions we'll maybe get into on another episode about the Joker, but I think
in fact, I need to watch it. I'm sad I haven't watched it yet. So,
well, you should watch that, and we should do
that. Yeah, sounds good.
Also, check out my weed tube because there's a Joker review there. No, I'd like to actually have a conversation with somebody about it, but I think in the context of Watchmen, it's not the same story of becoming a villain, but this person who's been beat down and had so much terrible things happen to him deciding to take this course of action and, you know, put the hood back on. You know, they put a hood on him and they were going to hang him, and they took it off, and he's just carrying it, and he sees family, or like a guy and a girl about to get raped or robbed, and he puts the hood back on.
Yeah,
and then
such a magical scene. To touch on that, when he put that hood back on, you know, it was the first thing that popped in my head. It was like, all right, motherfuckers, you want a hood over my head? Let's fucking do this. Yeah, that's it was. And then he just opened a can of whoop ass, and it was so awesome.
And the extra little thing of, you know, in the comics, whenever you see him, he looks Caucasian around the eyes, and there's never really been any sort of conversation of who he was or anything like that, and you get that in this. And this is a man that's been tortured, beat up, put down, and he uses his mask, but he paints his eyes to look like he's white underneath, and that was mind-blowing and brilliant in the context of story. But I could also see that happening in real life if we did live in that world where superheroes became what they were maybe earlier in like the 40s, when the golden age of comics was, you know, around. If that was real, I could see that happening. I could see that being in our real world, that being the case. And you know, you don't always get those kinds of that kind of storytelling. I think Watchmen is important because of the time period it comes out, and I think this show is also important because of the time period it came out. We need that kind of, you know, there's a lot of racial tension still in the country, and we're in 2020. We're just 20 years past the new millennium, and everybody's like, we're living 2019. Yeah, we still deal with it. It's still out there, and it's terrible. And for me, I think having shows, comic books, things like this that teach these lessons, you teach them to kids young. You know, it's X-Men was the civil rights movement in the 60s when it originated. It was about you know, white people and everybody else. That's what X-Men kind of was an analogy for at the time. I did not know that. Yeah, and good info. Yeah, and I think those are important stories to tell, especially kids while they're growing up, is because you can make it tangible without making it super scary, you know? I think it's important to tell stories like that. And Watchmen gets a little bit scary because you see him get beat up for being black. They almost hang him. Like, all this crazy stuff happens. In the context of the story, it works out the way it needs to. But it's important to tell, because even adults these days need to know that. You need to hear these stories. Yeah. So, I don't know. What'd you think?
Of that episode? Yeah. God, it was...
Tell me about history.
I don't know much about history. I can't even fathom, and it's happened. I can't even fathom being a child that age, and not only getting ripped away from your parents and the only thing you know in this world, which is your little town, your little theater, but then also to witness what he was able to witness, slowly peeking out of the bullet hole and seeing, unfortunately, probably people he know, but people being dragged and hung, and it was the way they did it was beautiful, in the sense that it wasn't you said it earlier, it wasn't so detailed and disgusting, I guess is what I'm looking for. It showed the history, and then it moved on, but you did get a taste of what this poor kid went through. And it was just really important. I think that's why this whole series was good, because they really did such an amazing job with the characters that were important, going back to their foundation and really getting you to uncovering who they are and where they came from. And that's, for me, why I had so much love for these characters, you know, Regina's characters and Hood of Justice. You feel for them, and then you're rooting for them. Right.
And such a weird parallel between the two characters that are related that didn't know each other at all. Like, they have very similar upbringings. They both lost their parents at young ages, kind of became orphans, and then they both get into the like vigilante business, the family business, if you will.
Right, by accident.
Yeah. And it's cool too, because I mean, I don't know if it's cool or not, but the visual representation of the eye coloring that they both use. He uses white, she uses black. Yes. I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like those little like things. Should we overanalyze it? I don't know.
Yeah. And was that the same episode where how did we forget to mention Don Johnson?
I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, yeah, we got to mention him. Because he's not in it a ton. He's in the very beginning and then oft. Dude.
Was that the same episode where he hangs him?
That's in episode 1, but they go back to it a couple of times.
Right. Because
they show in his backstory, in the Hooded Justice story, they show how he did it, I believe. How he ends up hanging him. In the flashlight.
Yeah, you're right. It was in the it was when she took all the pills, and it was that episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But dude, Don Johnson. I remember as a kid seeing little clips of Miami, or was it?
Oh yeah,
Miami Vice. And then I used to watch with my dad Nash Bridges. I don't know if you ever saw that.
I forgot about that show.
With Cheech. Cheech Marin was his sidekick. They were like cops in San Francisco. Yeah. No, I haven't revisited that in a long time. But yeah, and then he kind of fell off, and then he started popping up in things. Right. It seems like in the last handful of years, and God bless Don Johnson. Yeah. I love seeing him in shit so much, and I want so much more of him and stuff. I was so sad that he was gone as quick as he was in Watchmen, but he played a perfect role. I thought.
Yes.
I thought that his storyline and how it tied into Hooded Justice's history and all that really tied together well. It really brought the story together. Tell me stuff about Don Johnson that you like.
Well, it was...
Is it the like neon shirts and the blazers?
Well, yeah. Let me finish, for Christ's sake. His character was kind of a mystery, I think, kind of up until the end.
Yeah.
I felt he was... Oh gosh, you tell me. I mean, did he really love Angela? Or was he just keeping her close to the chest?
That's a question I still don't know. But
but it was done so well where I'm not angry that I don't know it.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think if I was Angela, I'd be like, you know what? He was good to me. And maybe he did all this other shit, but we're just going to move on now because they've all been vaporized.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking racists.
Great scene, by the
way. Yeah.
And, Frances Fisher.
Oh, the wife.
Played his wife.
Yeah, she was on, was she on NCIS or something like that? I think she was like one of the heads on like one of those cop shows for a while. She was like
I got a flashback for you with her.
Huh.
Whose mom was she in a blockbuster movie?
I'm going to kick myself, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Rose in Titanic.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. Huh.
And I'll tell you right now, in Watchmen, I had never been so frightened and turned on at the same fucking time. She was great.
You're like, I'm attracted, but if I find out I'm Latino.
If I'm going to die right now, so be it. And I don't care how old she is. Jesus Christ, she looked amazing.
Yeah, no, she did a great job too. There's the scene
Trapdoor.
Yeah, dude, that is one of my favorite like comedy scenes from that show. Is there's funny moments and stuff like that, but that her not being able to get the trap door open, and she's got the clicker that looks like it's from like 1972 or something like that. And the look
on Lori's face, like, what the fuck are you doing?
She's like smacking it like it's not working. You're like, what's going on? The trap door's not working. that scene played out so well because when I watched it, I saw, this Regina King's having the conversation with her, like, well, was he might have been a racist and he might have been, part of the Klan or whatever. And you get so much emotion at first. At first, it's like you get a tiny bit of like, oh my gosh, oh no, was he? And then all of a sudden it switches and she was like, yeah, well, we're all fucking racist, whatever her line was that she says, she switched so quick, and then it turns to that comical scene where she's like trying to do the trapdoor, and it, like she jumps from like a couple of different emotions so fluidly in that scene. She did a great job of that.
And you know what? That's actually a really good segue to this. They did, to me, such a good job with a little bit of like comedy, like the movie. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many serious moments in the movie, but there was a lot of funny shit in that. And they did that with this, like moments, like scenes like that, where you're so serious, but it's kind of comical. Yeah.
Oh, man. And I remember being fixated on the remote too, because it like looked so old. It looked like it looked
like an old garage door opener.
Yeah, my dad with like the button, like you can see all of the buttons are up until one's clicked down. Yeah. It's like an old like fan.
Yeah.
Don Johnson was great. I forgive me if I'm getting this wrong. The guy that played Cal, the husband, I think his name is Yahya Abdul Mateen.
Yeah. I was just gonna bring him up.
That dude. Okay, aka Dr. Manhattan / Blue Schlong.
Yeah.
You see a lot of penis in this show, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is probably why we like it so much.
Well, what's great about these days is you can pause that shit. Just keep watching.
Screen capture is one of the best inventions in technology.
Fucking yeah, man.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, is it me or is that dude's voice like a lullaby?
Yeah.
I mean,
I want to listen to him read the phone book to me.
I want that motherfucker to tuck me in bed at night. Yeah. Are you kidding me? Jesus. And when you realize, or when I realized, oh, this is Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, his whole monotone. Mm-hmm. How he was just cool and calm the whole time, and it totally made. I mean, again, this is writing and directing to me. At its best.
My chair just fucking broke. Sorry.
You know what's funny? I went to sleep watching The Sopranos last night, and it was the episode where they broke Adriana's chair, and she sat in it. So that had a flashback
you see the
for
look
me
of
right
terror
now.
in my eyes. I was like, I'm going down.
And I'm sadly, bro, I was not going to catch you, man. I was not.
I wouldn't have either.
I actually would have saved your base that is right behind you.
Hey, you know what? Looking out for a brother. I would too.
Yeah, dude.
I can fix myself. I can't fix that.
No, I would have dove for that thing, just so you know.
Sorry about that.
Really, just yeah. I think, oh man, that was great, and then the love scenes between them, and yeah. What'd you think? What'd you think of him playing Dr. Manhattan?
I wasn't super familiar with him in a lot of stuff. The only other thing I'd seen him in is Aquaman. He plays Black Manta in that one, in the Aquaman movie.
I did not see that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
You make up your mind if you want to see that or not. I'm not going to tell you you should see it.
I'll take your word for it.
It's fine. It's entertaining, but yeah, he's in that, and knowing those characters in Aquaman, I felt like he was a little underused in Aquaman. And I see him in this, and man, after up until the reveal of him actually being Manhattan the whole time, I wanted him. I want that.
Say again.
Like, can you just like, can I date that kind of a person? Like, just so soft spoken, like always reading, like really.
Yeah, your wife comes home and it's like, oh no, I'm trying to pick a fight, and it's like, yeah,
I
I know.
I put the kids to bed.
Yeah,
and
put the kids to bed. And I'm about to show you my blue penis.
And she's like, well, I'm upset. And he's like, well, I'm not. Maybe let's talk about it, you know?
Hey, I just in life, I look at everything to learn from, to better myself as a person. And shit, I took a little bit from that.
Yeah.
Don't engage. Life's too short. Let's talk
Really?
this shit out. I mean, that was, and that's something John, Dr. Manhattan, that's how he would have handled that situation.
Yeah.
And so again, brilliant.
Let's jump to maybe the last person that we should maybe talk about, and that would be Adrian Veidt.
Yes.
That would be why am I forgetting his name? Oh my gosh.
Jeremy Irons?
Yeah, Jeremy Irons.
Yeah.
The voice of Scar himself.
Yeah.
Man.
He's got a storybook teller's voice.
I love Jeremy Irons. I know I think he's maybe said some like things outside of acting that maybe people didn't like.
Oh, really?
But Jeremy Irons has been there my entire life when it comes to films. Like, I remember seeing him in all kinds of stuff. Even that terrible, terrible Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out in like
missed that.
2000 or something like that. Ugh. But Jeremy Irons, oh man, what an actor that guy is. And what a role to give him too as an older version of Ozymandias. Like, I thought that was absolute perfect casting, and I loved his storyline. It was so weird.
I wanted to hate it, but I don't know, man. If I was stranded on an island or whatever, or planet by myself, and even though, I had the ability to create some clones around me, which was cool. I think the way they portrayed him kind of going nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could buy that.
I at first I thought it was going to get a little bit old because there was like, you had to kind of guess what was going on. They only gave you like, every time you saw him, only a tiny bit of information that you maybe had to read into to be like, what's going on with this guy?
Right.
And I thought I was going to get bored with this because it's like,
I was getting there. I was getting there.
Yeah.
If it was going to drag out there on
another
that planet,
episode or two, it
for
would
sure.
have been too much.
Yeah. So, I totally agree with you on that one.
But I love that whole thing of like, what's going on here with all these clones, and who's this like master dude on the horse that's like his like arch enemy. And then at the end when he finally kills him and he's like, was I a good rival? He's like, no. That's completely Ozymandias right there. To be like, I tried to have like the best chess match of my life, and you just sucked so bad. Like, I'm over here trying to use my brain, and you guys are just fucking around.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, I fucking loved Jeremy Irons in that role. And again, if there is any more Watchmen story to be told, maybe, hopefully, we get a little bit more, because I could use a little bit more of that character too.
Yeah,
him in Looking Glass.
Well, and what happens? Because basically, Laurie arrested him.
Yeah. So he's in prison again.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see him play that one out
without your sexy ass clones,
right? Excuse me. Do you have any other thoughts on Watchmen before we wrap this segment?
All around, I give it an A. And it was very well executed. And gosh, good. Kudos, Dave, Damien, Nicole, Steve, all these people involved in making that. You know what? At the end of the day, life's rough, and we want to be entertained, and mission accomplished. So that's how I'll wrap that up.
I pretty much share all your sentiments. I think the only other thing I would say is HBO does a good job of doing these kinds of anthology or one-off series. I really hope other studios kind of start doing that too, because I think with Star Wars, one of the things we're seeing is overabundance of IP franchising. It turns people off after a while because eventually things get bad, and that's just, it's going to happen. So I hope more studios take note of Watchmen and what kinds of things HBO does with that kind of show. So